When the Civil War began in 1861 at the start of Abraham Lincoln's presidency, there was a large dispute between the free states and the slave states over the new ruling called the Emancipation Proclamation, which prohibited slave expansion in U.S. territories and abolished slavery altogether. 11 slave states decided to become their own nation by secession, calling themselves the Confederate States of America. Believing this would destroy the democracy of their country from secession, the northern states, which had been in favor of the prohibited slave expansion, created the Union to fight against the Confederate, and thus brought many leaders who greatly contributed to this war, one being Ulysses S. Grant. General Grant's style of leadership, his persistence and combat skills in hard-fought battles such as taking Fort Henry, Fort Donelson, Shiloh, Vicksburg, and many others led to the legacy of a united nation once again, and of finally having national approval for the amendment of abolishing slavery. Prior to serving in the Civil War, Grant had been in the Mexican War, but resigned after being placed too far away from his family and to avoid being kicked out of the service as a result of missing them. Grant jumped right at the chance to serve in the Civil War and was set to first command as colonel and quickly made brigadier general soon after. Grant's first few battles were of great success, ones such as taking Fort Henry and Fort Donelson, which took place in February of 1862. The battle involved many casualties, over 2,000 on Union side, and over 13,000 on the Confederate side. After that victory, Grant earned the nickname Unconditional Surrender Grant for his persistence in both fights for both forts, and had been promoted by Abraham Lincoln to Major General. A major loss of men but a surprising victory at the Battle of Shiloh in his lead greatly influenced how many United States citizens saw Grant as a leader. Confederate soldiers came to their site on April 6, 1862, before most of the Union soldiers were even prepared to fight, and hit them with a surprise attack. The Confederates began forcing the Union soldiers away from their base until they finally tried to stand their ground at a sunken road, later famously known as the Hornet's Nest. Over 13,000 casualties of the Union were a result, and over 10,000 casualties of the Confederate side occurred as well that day. But on the second day of battle, the Union struck again, ultimately achieving victory and gaining back Shiloh. This battle was one of the bloodiest of battles fought in America at the time. Many people had spread rumors of Grant being unprepared or drunk during the battle, not leading his men to the fullest of his ability, thus losing many more of his men than he should have. However, President Lincoln argued that Grant was a great asset to this war, and they could not afford to drop him from his charge, no matter what the situation is rumored to have been, so Grant remained. The Battle of Vicksburg in Mississippi occurred in May of 1863. Grant's hard-won victory in that battle just showed how well thought out his strategy for success had been. The Confederate soldiers had no idea of the Union's intentions, so when they crossed over the Mississippi River, Grant sent over some of his army with General William T. Sherman to capture Jackson, the state capital, while he set his eyes on Vicksburg to cut off the supplies for the Confederates permanently. The Union soldiers were forced to cut off supplies immediately upon reaching the city after seeing the defenses from Vicksburg on them. I do not remember that you and I ever met personally. I write this now as a grateful acknowledgement for the almost inestimable service you have done the country. I wish to say a word further. When you first reached the vicinity of Vicksburg, I thought you should do what you finally did, march the troops across the neck, run the batteries with the transports, and thus go below. And I never had any faith except a general hope that you knew better than I, that the Yazoo Pass expedition and the like could succeed. When you got below and took Port Gibson, Grand Gulf, and vicinity, I thought you should go down the river and join General Banks. And when you turned northward east of the Big Black, I feared it was a mistake. I now wish to make the personal acknowledgement that you were right and I was wrong. Yours very truly, Abraham Lincoln. After President Lincoln promoted Grant to lieutenant general after the Union victory, Grant had been in the Army of Potomac with a determination to defeat Robert E. Lee at all costs. The battles at Wilderness, Spotsylvania, Cold Harbor, and the siege of Petersburg effectively defeated the Confederate Army, leading to Lee's surrender of his army at the Appomattox Courthouse in 1865, bringing an end to the Civil War and a Union victory. Though Ulysses S. Grant was not the only leader to have greatly contributed in the Civil War, he definitely played his part in being one of the most committed and determined of them all. Had he not had the same persistence and skills in this war that helped lead to victory, the legacy of abolishing slavery after would have not been as easily made.